After the Wagner Group's revolt on Saturday, he released a video speech to young engineers, and it made no mention of the armed mutiny. The Russian government says Putin spoke with the Emir of Qatar and the president of Iran, and they both expressed support. All security restrictions in Moscow have now been lifted. And there is no one better to talk about all of these latest developments in Russia than former National Security Advisor Ambassador John Bolton. He served as the National Security Advisor under the Trump administration. He is also a former ambassador to the United Nations and is currently the founder of the Foundation for American Security and Freedom. Ambassador Bolton, thank you so much for your time today.
Glad to be with you.
So, Ambassador, I want to go and begin right here with a situation that's been developing in Russia. What does this attempted rebellion led by the Wagner Group signal to you? And what does it say about the control that Putin might have or no longer has over the country right now?
Well, it's very unclear exactly what the facts are. Almost every aspect of this, what happened over the weekend, what the objectives of Ocean and the Wagner Group actually were, what the terms of the deal were negotiated with Putin, and what the situation is now, let alone the future of the Putin Russia. Literally just within, I think, about the past hour or so, Prigozhin has issued a statement. Apparently he's not in custody anywhere. We don't know where he is. Maybe he's in Belarus. Issued a statement saying that the march on Moscow had not been an effort. It was just a protest march about incompetence at the Ministry of Defense, and like it's the fifth inning of a baseball game and one team sends up its fourth inning lineup. That's what they argued about over the weekend. So I don't know whether Prigozhin the deal or what, but this, I just think we all need to proceed with here because there are so many facts we don't know and they keep changing quickly. I do think the lack of information should make us particularly cautious about drawing conclusions about the future of Putin's government. There were people over the weekend basically saying our time before the Putin government ended. That is a possibility. I acknowledge I don't see the facts for it at this point.
Now, Ambassador, we are having some trouble with your connection. We're going to go ahead and stick with you, though. I wanted to ask your thoughts, though, as you did say that people don't know where Prigozhin is right now. In your best estimates, what happened here? Why did the Wagner Group turn around?
Well, I think they must have felt that whatever their objectives were, they were not achieve them and that they were at risk, which is one reason I don't see the event as some significant defeat for Putin. I don't dispute that he's been weakened. This would be a problem for any regime. But at the end of the day, Putin, Kremlin, we don't know where Prigozhin is. Maybe he's in Belarus. Maybe he's not. The group will continue as a separate entity, or maybe it won't. We see what happens on the battlefield in Ukraine. I think it's hard to draw conclusions. And I think potential advantage for Putin, he should be saying to the Russians, let's stop worrying on at home. Let's concentrate on the troops in the field and the need to support them. That's how I support that would strengthen his own position.
So in the meantime, here at home, Republican presidential candidate Will Hurd has been critical of President Biden's reaction. So have some other lawmakers. He was speaking with ABC over the weekend. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say, and I'll get your reaction on the other side.
When there's uncertainty and chaos, that's actually an opportunity. That's actually an opportunity for us to double down on our friends. You know, we had intelligence reports that suggest that this was going forward. We should have been planning with our allies. We should have been planning with the Ukrainians on how to take advantage of this opportunity.
Now, Ambassador, you were a former national security advisor. What do you make of Hurd's comments? Could the White House have handled this moment any differently?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Will Hurd. I think he did an excellent job in Congress. I wish in this case, however, I think you have to think about what U.S. visible government might have done to buttress Putin's argument that the whole advance of the ripping apart of the Soviet Union was an American plot. And I think that the ability Putin might us, blame other outsiders would fit into him being able to strengthen. So I think there are a lot of reasons to criticize the Biden administration's policy, what I think Will Hurd was doing, and I agree with him on that. In this instance, however, sitting back was probably the best thing to do. We'll have to look at this day by day.
Now, how does this all affect the war in the meantime? The Ukrainians are in the midst of their counteroffensive. Do you believe that this attempted revolt will provide a morale boost? What does it mean for the war? Do you see it coming to an end at any time soon?
I think any time the soldiers' attention is distracted from the front, from the people actually shooting at them on in the rear area, that's not a good thing for the Russians. Now, it's not clear Ukraine is taking advantage of the diversion of attention or whether steps that are previously planned. But I think one of the main things the Russians will like trying to minimize any detrimental effect of the events of the weekend and the next week, whether Ukraine has been able to gain an advantage.
Now, in the meantime, Russia, or Iran rather, has come out in support of Russia. China also voicing its support for Putin after this short-lived rebellion. What are your thoughts, Ambassador? Should the U.S. be concerned at all with this continued friendship between Russia and China?
Well, I think Russia and China, as it stands now, constitutes a threat to the United States. I think China's and in many respects, its support for Russia in the war in Ukraine is critical. In a perfect world, we would find a way to split Russia away from. I don't know how to do that as long as the war in Ukraine continues, but it's one to consider about alternative governments in Moscow that may not be able to control over the entire country. A much weaker Russian government plays in. If you look at a map of Asia, there's a lot of Russia north of China, very low population, natural resources. That's not a place where we want to see China extend.
And what do you make of the situation in China right now? We know that Secretary of State Antony Blinken just returned from a trip there. Was his trip successful? And what do you make of President Biden's most recent comments about President Xi?
Well, I think Biden did the class gaffe where he said what he actually believed, which was that Xi Jinping is a dictator, not with American policy, not to call him that, but so he was right, even if by accident. I don't think much came out of the talks with China. I think the U.S. needs to be concerned not about rhetoric, but about Chinese behavior, including significant reports about possible new intelligence collection facilities in Cuba, building a military facility purposes, quote unquote. This is something that we precluded the Soviet Union Cuba during the Cold War after the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I think we should view any significant new Chinese facilities in Cuba as a direct threat to the United States. We ought to be focusing on.
So you are saying that it is a threat, these so-called Chinese spy bases in Cuba. What is your assessment in terms of how the U.S. should be handling this right now?
Well, or after the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had an understanding with the Soviet Union. They military forces, offensive weapons, delivery systems into Cuba and the Castro government. We had several episodes where the Soviet did that, we pushed back and succeeded. We have no such understanding with China. Should make it clear that the Cuban government, the post-Castro government, is at risk if the Chinese proceed with significant investments in military facilities, espionage facilities, else that threatens the United States. We're not just playing around here. Cuba's 90 miles. It was a threat during the Cold War because of the Soviets. Could well be a threat going Chinese.
And Ambassador Bolton, I'm going to have to let you go, but before I do, I know that you've spoken about throwing your hat in the ring for the 2024 presidential race, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you if you were going to do that.
Well, I appreciate it. The field is pretty crowded, but I think I still see number one, to make sure Donald Trump does not get the Republican nomination, and number two, to ensure issues factor at the top of the political debate for 2024. We've just spent describing why that needs to happen. I want to see how this strange presidential cycle. So I don't think I'm disadvantaged by not being in it. And I'm just going to keep a very close eye on it and be a potential competitor standing.
All right, sir, I wish you the best of luck. Ambassador John Bolton is the former national security advisor under the Trump administration, also was the former ambassador to the United Nations as well. Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.